Hello and good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Welcome to Virtual Thursday, edition 12 for 2019. My name is Mark Wolf, lead international trainer. I'll be presenting today, and with me today, I'm running as we call it our wingman, is our regional trainer, Michael Bazzoni. He's going to be hiding in the background there, giving us some input and also monitoring questions that if you may put those in, there's a chat window in your control panel for the GoToWebinar. If you have any questions over the material we're covering, just post them in there and he will get them answered for you. And we're going to provide plenty of live examples in an account today as well. So we should give you plenty of experience. We want to talk about and remind you we have these training opportunities, Virtual Thursdays. Of course, they're free. Just takes your time to attend it. They're the first Thursday at 1100 hours Pacific time. You can adjust that to your local time. We also record the Virtual Thursdays trainings and put them in the knowledge base on the support page under the Webinars on Demand section, so you can refer back to them whenever you have time and the need to do so. We do provide online training, 3-hour blocks, and we can customize those training sessions to meet your needs with one of our trainers. We do provide on-site training if you desire to have one of our trainers come in to your location to provide a specific training that you need in your department. We can customize those as well. 2, 3, 4, or 5 days are available, and just contact your sales rep and they can arrange that for you. Also, I want to point out that we do provide regional training academies, and next year we are going to go kind of big with this. From what I'm understanding today, we have the hopes that we're going to present 11 of those across the country next year. And I want to point out to you that we have some of them scheduled. So the first one we'll talk about is in Corpus Christi, Texas, January 7th through the 9th. We have one specifically for our ultra secure customers, which is mostly Department of Defense based. That training session is out in California in February 4th, 5th, and 6th. And also down in Jacksonville, Florida, March 17th through the 19th. We'll be down there. We've got more to announce. As those are firmed up, we will get that information out to everybody. You can, if you have some time, go to this link, emergencyreporting.eventbrite.com, and you can check out the virtual or the regional training academies that we have scheduled. Check into the locations that you desire and sign up for them there. And we'll be interested to see you when we present those around the country next year. And as always, you can look at our website, emergencyreporting.com, go to Customer Success, the Training and Learning Center. You can find out more information about the regional training academies and training in general on that particular page. If you have a specific question for the training team, you can address it to training@emergencyreporting.com, and we'll be happy to help you out and get you an answer for any questions you might have. So that's our little introduction. I want to just welcome Michael and thank him for coming in and helping me do the presentation today. So we're going to jump right into this. And don't forget, if you do have questions, you can post them in that questions panel in your GoToWebinar control panel. So we're going to talk about training codes today and basically the settings in the training module. And one of the things that we push out as we're training people on this is one of the areas in the system that you have to really think of: what type of requirements do you have to report the training? And think of those types of requirements and then work backwards through the system on setting up in the settings section all of the detailed codes that you need to help you out with that. So you want to look at your specific reporting requirements, and I have a few examples that we're going to show you in a little bit. And then work backwards again, specifically in the class categories, training code categories, and training codes as needed for your particular department. The system is very flexible, and this can be customized exactly the way that you need it. So what we're going to do here is we're logged into a training account, and we are going to select settings at the top. You have to have permissions set for you to do so within your particular account. When we go to settings, basically we're going to talk about these tabs across the top, and specifically we're going to start with class categories. And class categories, what you would want to consider and think of here is the data for your training from a high altitude viewpoint. Not really any details of the training, but from a high altitude, like such as we're doing firefighter training or incident command training. And then through the use of training code categories and training codes, you can get into more detail with those. And I'm going to show you one little trick we have in just a few minutes with some of these. If you have training code categories, training codes, or class categories that you no longer want to use, and a little bit of a warning that we have about deleting them here in just a few moments. So there was a few examples that I'm showing you that I have in this particular account set up. And they're pretty typical, and many of you already have these set up in your account, and maybe you have a lot more than what I have in this one. Of course, this account here, we put things in it and take it out all the time, and it gets kind of beat up. So what I want to do now is pull in some spreadsheet examples. I was recently introduced to the training codes that one of our customers uses. It happens to be a DoD contractor providing fire protection for the U.S. Army over in Kuwait. They had a very, very excellent example set up in their account. That's what I'm showing you right now on the screen with a minor modification or two done to it. So the first thing we're going to look at is class category list. So we have here broken down in the list, and we have them numbered, starting with the 100 series for ARF training and all aspects of aircraft rescue and firefighter training. We go on down through the page with all these, and I'll just scroll down here very slowly to show you what I think is a very, very excellent example of class category setup for a lot of different high altitude viewpoints of training. Now, one thing I did do with this particular set of class category codes was I added this one in row 4 here. I'll select it here. So I added that in here. I like to, I'm a proponent of splitting EMS certification training records, which is right above here in class category 200 EMS to, in this case, I just created a number between 200 and 300, 250 EMS CE for continuous education training. So if you're doing EMS CE hours and specifically an in-house type situation, you can track them separately from when you send your personnel to their EMT or paramedic training, which was, I would consider, the certification training right above that. Now, some of the reports for training codes, it's real handy because you can filter or use as a parameter class categories on those reports. And one of the most popular reports for training hours is the 1502 report. And that is one that certainly has a parameter that you can select to show only class categories on. This is a great example of it here. So if you have a class category for EMS CE, you can just show the EMS CE classes where you entered that as the class category, and it pulls out and restricts all the other data coming into that report so you can verify your Con Ed training. So that's their example of their class categories. So I'm going to switch to the next tab over to their training code categories. And these are very, very similar, and it may even be exact. And I think this is a good idea too. You may want to expand on some of your class categories in the training code categories, but these are very, very similar and almost exact to their class categories with the category and the description. And then we're going to jump over to the training codes. Take note of, in particular, like the number series. 100 is a training code category number. So in the training codes, they set up code 101 is the UH-60 familiarization, AH-60 for Apache familiarization, and so forth down the line. So you've broken it down by specific topic areas using the series of the 100 series, in this case for crash rescue, firefighting, aircraft firefighting crash rescue. The EMS codes are the 200 series. 300 series are driving type trainings, pump operations, and so forth, different types of vehicles. 400 is some specialty training, rescue tools, confined space, high and low angle type training. And if we scroll on down here, we'll see we have live burns in the 500 series, mutual aid 600, and so forth down the page. In the 700 series specifically, we have our firefighting training codes. So they've used this as a great example, I think, for everybody to take a look at and use. And I'll just scroll down the screen slowly so you can kind of take a look at this and see how they have it set up. based upon those class categories and the training code categories all the way down to the training codes. This is, I think, a really, really good example of an excellent way to set your training codes up if you need to. So that's that example. So what I'm going to do now is close this page out, and we're going to drag over another example and set this up. And let me show. Now this is basically, except for a modification in this area right through here, rows 7 through 12 that I made to this particular account. These are basically, if you have a newer account, I'm going to suggest within the last year and a half or so, when we create a new account, we provide these training codes in the accounts now for the most part. These are basically ISO based, which is a huge thing for most fire departments to follow. So these were set up for us, and we put them into these new accounts. And you can see down here we have some training code categories, starting with term ISO, building familiarization, ISO company training, and so forth. Existing driver operating training. It would also have new driver operator training, hazmat, recruit training, live burn, multiple company drills, officer training, and so forth, down through the page here. So this is, again, another excellent example of setting up your training codes. Again, if we take a look at what is your goal or your reporting requirements to set up your training codes to match that. Now, I will point out too, attached to the handout section of your control panel, I did put these spreadsheets in there so you can download them right now if you choose to do so. And you can use them as examples for yourself in your department. So I am going to go grab this one here, and we'll show you this one. Now this is a specialty one that we have, and just as an example, and this is in that group of handouts out there. This is based upon the requirements in Texas for the Texas Commission on Fire Protection, and what they want to see in some training activities. So they have different tracks. Track A, and then if we scroll down here a bit, you'll see a National Fire Academy Track A items, and Pro Board, and so forth, as it equates to the Texas Commission on Fire Protection training codes. And that is in those handouts as well. So you can take a look at those items and to see if that meets your needs, especially if you're down here in Texas. Now, Texas has 2 different requirements for training. I don't really know of any other state that does it the way they do there. They have different training requirements, whether you're a career full-time firefighter or a volunteer. The Texas Commission on Fire Protection is for the career firefighters. And we also have, and I don't believe I have that brought up as of yet. Let me see if I can find it very, very quickly for you here. And Michael, I'm looking for this. Do you have anybody posted any questions that we can attend to real quick?
No, sir, not at this time. You're doing too good.
Okay, well, thanks. Okay, so here's the other one that I was trying to mention. I'll drag it over right now. So this is for Texas, and we went through a lot of trouble to get this information and write this up. Our one of our sales reps that covers Texas is responsible for helping a lot with this, and this is the Texas State Firefighters and Fire Marshal Association list of training codes that they use for their volunteers down in Texas. This is kind of a lengthy list, but as you can see, we have introductory sections on all the different topics of what a firefighter needs to know. And I'll just scroll down the page here a little bit to show you some of these. Fire hose practices included here, ladders, salvage and overhaul, fire streams, ventilation.
Hey, Mark, we do have one question that popped in. I think it'd be good to talk about overhead. From Mike Wood. He said, he asked, what would be the purpose of duplicating the category and class codes by using the same name?
Well, I think my best answer would be, and Michael, you certainly chime in if you want to provide any other information, is with reporting. and the reports available to you. Some of them are you can filter and use the class categories as a filter, or report by class category, and others use the training code categories. And I think it helps out a little bit. One thing you can do is, like in class categories in that example, is if you have a class category for special operations training, for example, and under the class, the training code categories, if you expand upon that, special operations training, hazmat, special operations training, confined space rescue, those types of things like that, it just helps you a little bit, I think, with your ability to pull reports from the system. That's why I recommend doing that. You have
Absolutely.
to have all three elements in a training record: the class category, training code category, and a training code. I think it gives you full flexibility in using the system for that. So continuing on down here, we've got the continuing with these. You can see I think there's several hundred in here, actually, up to about 400 of these codes. Following NFPA 101 for Firefighter 1, fire cause and origin, ground cover firefighting, hazmats, ropes, rescue operations, and so forth. So these are the State Firefighters and Fire Marshal Association of Texas training codes that we have. And I'm very, very certain that file, I put it into that the handouts section of your control panel if you want to take a look at these, if you're interested in those. One more that I do want to show you, so we'll close that one up. And I am going to drag over right now is we have some other ones that are known specialty training codes out in California. We call these CalJAC. These are the California Firefighter Joint Apprenticeship Program training codes. So we went into that book and brought those into here. And as you can see, there's a ton of them here too. If I just grab the scroll bar here and go down a little bit, you'll see that these are all defined by this 3-character code, and then our description of it out there. And this comes straight out of their manual for the CalJAC training in California. So I can see this. You'll see we're down in the D series, and we're down to row 300 so. And as you can see, we keep on dragging these down. So these are specifically for that apprenticeship program out in California, and how they want to see their training codes in that reported. So we're down into the row 1100. So you can see we have quite a few of these out there. And just scroll down here a little bit more and you'll see all those. And we have at the end of this, we're down here around 1,779 training codes available through that CalJAC list there. So that's available for you. Well, I'm pretty sure I put that into the handouts. So take advantage of that, and you can put those into your account. Now, as a technical matter, I do want to point out that the training codes as a customer-facing import is not available. And the reason for that is that there's no bulk delete in the system for training codes. So if you do something incorrectly there, you have to remove them one by one in there. That can be a lot, especially if you do something like the CalJAC ones. There's numerous ones out there, like we said, 1,700 plus, almost 1,800 of them. That could become a problem and quite time consuming if it's done incorrectly to get them in there. So you do have to put them in one by one if you were to do that, any kind of work. Now, one thing we do have the capability of importing them. And if you contact either one of us directly, and Michael, I'll ask you to put our email addresses in the chat so everybody can see that and grab them.
Will do.
So if anybody sees one of those that they would like to use, that they've got there, or you have your own, you can email it to us and we can put it in a template and import it into your account. We're really big on providing customer service like that, and we will do that for you. So one thing I do want to mention also, I'm going to jump back to class categories, is once you set these in here, there's a couple things we want to point out to you. As you can see, some of these class categories here, like 100 administrative that I have, the trash can here to delete this, I can't, because it's dimmed out because I've used it in a training class out there. So there's a couple things that we can do with this. First of all is, let's say you need to just change the name of it. You can't do that. There is an edit memo pad here. If you select that, this one in particular, you can see we have it called administrative, and I'm just going to put the word training behind it. And then we've got an icon all the way over here to the right to save, and we've just updated the title of that. That works in the class categories, and in the training code categories, you can edit these names, and in training codes. It's quite simple to do. Again, just select that memo pad. I'm going to just select this one at the top of the page here, and I want to make sure we get that spelled correctly, and then save it, edit and save. So you can't do that. It's fairly simple to do. So you can edit those names if you need to. Now, one other thing I'm going to show you here is that, and discuss, and this is can be quite important out there for long-term storage of your data for training. If you come in to specifically training codes, let me jump back to training codes. You can, at any time that you need to, want to, you can delete any training code in here. Even though most of these on this list have been used in training records out there, these you can delete at any time. Now, when you do that, here's the warning. When you do that, if you have previous records that you may want to use or have the need to use at some point down the road, once that you delete this training code, it disassociates that training code from the ability to pull reports off of it. So it's something you want to be very, very careful in doing, and consider the ramifications of that before you delete a training code. So let's say in our example here that we're talking about, you have either class categories, training code categories, or training codes that you no longer want to use. But you also want to be able to pull records from them, past records. So here's, we're going to show you the trick. And this came about when ER switched from training 2.0 to training 3.0. You have the ability to hide imported training codes. So we're going to fool the system. And here's how you do that. So you can see down here under prevention, I have the word imported listed behind it. I'm going to select to edit this. And we'll scroll down here a bit so you can see that a little bit. And I'm actually going to zoom in a little bit here so you can see this. So here's the trick. Any of these class categories, training code categories, or training codes that you no longer want to see and have your personnel to be able to select them, behind the name of it, here's the string of characters: a space, a hyphen, another space, and the word imported. So when we type that in, just the way I did it right there, and we're going to save this. Now, if I scroll back up to the top of the page, there's a hide important button at the top of the page. If I select hide imported, let me scroll down a bit so you can see it. This one down here, prevention. When I select that, now it's no longer displayed here, and your folks that have general access to maybe add a class record but not get to the settings, they will not see that class category anymore. And it works the same way over in training code categories. I've already, as you can see here, I've already imported some, put that text behind it, and let me select that, and you'll see someplace in this list it will pop up. Oh, here it is right at the top, administrative, imported. And if I select hide imported again, you can see it disappears that. So now we can still pull reports off of it. And we can do the same thing in training codes. I'm going to select to show imported, and you'll see I have some right at the top of the page that have that text. And that's the string of characters again, is space, hyphen, space, and the word imported with a capital I. I believe you have to have that capitalized for it to work correctly too. So with those three settings sections in the training module, you can hide those basically, and your personnel won't be able to use them, and you'll still be able to pull data from those older training reports that you may have. That's the trick. So I'm hoping you folks will use that to your best advantage down the road.
Hey, Mark, while you're going through there,
Yes.
somebody asked, David Aubrey asked, you mentioned the CalJack codes. Do we have those available we can share?
Yeah, see, our handouts are limited to 5, and I don't think I put them in there. Is that a correct statement?
I believe so. I couldn't find them, so I didn't know if we have a separate Excel file that we could share, get out to
Oh,
people
sure,
who
I
want
do.
them.
That's what I showed you right on the screen here. Absolutely.
Okay.
Um,
Hopefully that answered your question, Dave.
so what you need to do, since Michael, I hope you put our email addresses in there. Send me an email, whoever wants
I
those
did.
CalJack codes, and then I just say, hey, can you send me those CalJack codes, and I will send you the file. Absolutely. And we can work with you if you want them imported into your account. No issues with that whatsoever. Perfect. Does that help out with that? Okay.
I believe so.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Mike. We're going to switch over and go through the rest of these tabs here very quickly, and I want to tie everything up here with a couple things at the end of the discussion after we talk about the settings. Next, we're going to go to locations. Now, in the locations, one of the things that we really push out there as a trainer, especially if you are interested in getting the best ISO points for training, your firefighter training, is to, if you have the availability of using a fire training facility like a drill tower, burn building, and that type of thing, make sure that you have that in your location. And in this particular account, we have a couple of them in here. We have a Stallion Fire Training Grounds, Station 1, and we have a drill tower at Station 1, as these are just examples. So there's a couple reports that are available out there that you can pull off of locations. And what the ISO is wanting to see is the documentation of 18 hours per year at a firefighter training facility for your personnel. And you can maximize your points by just making that one simple notation in your training records. And when you pull those reports, they can help you get the maximum benefit for that. So that's one thing I just want to mention. Now you can add different locations here in this page in your settings. And also within a training record, you can, on the fly, I call it, add locations for trainings. Now it's got some good and bad associated with it. So let's talk about that. One of the issues is right now, and it's a programming bug that I've reported and we've got written up to get fixed. However, from this page, if I type in a new location, so if I select add new location, and try to put in, I'm just going to type in this Station 2. So what I'm doing is duplicating this location down here. And in my description, Station 2. When I try to add this right here, the system will tell me, hey, you're already using that. You can't duplicate it right here. The issue happens to be, I have to use the back button here. Clear that up. The issue happens to be is if you add a location on the fly within a training record, you can duplicate these things. So be careful with that. Just train your personnel to look through your whole entire list instead of just the top of it, especially if you have a longer training location list, to find the correct location if it's already in there, or you'll find that you will have duplications in here. So hopefully at some point our dev team can go in and write the code for the programming to eliminate that as an issue. That's locations. We're going to jump right next to that to the resources tab. The resources tab is good to put the basically the equipment or resources you need to do a particular training session on. So we've got a few examples in here. Good old things like a good old chalkboard, which I'm sure some of you out there probably don't know what that really is. Talking about the good old slate chalkboards they used back in school in my day. You know, classrooms, if you're doing hose evolution trainings, of course you'll need fire hose and nozzle. Maybe as a resource you need a live fire training structure or prop. Maybe for you folks out there up to speed with training using a smart board, which I just did when I was down in Texas, here at Sherman, Texas, a few weeks ago. They had a real nice smart board that we used in their training room. It worked out real well. And then a good old typewriter, perhaps the old school manual type of typewriter that you have to push on those keys to get them to work instead of an electronic keyboard like we use today. So this list can be quite lengthy, and if you need those kind of information in your training reports, go ahead and add them. The next thing over we're going to talk about are task sheet categories. Within the training record, you can add task sheets. So if you have some type of drill sheet or some type of practical skills form that you are using, you can set this up within your account. You have to first generate task sheet categories. There's a couple that are for examples here. I'm in Ohio, and in Ohio for a few years now, we've used practical skill evaluation forms for our Firefighter 1 and 2 training. So we've set up a task sheet category for that, as you can see. And in the task sheets, we've got a couple examples in here, one of which is the Ohio Fire Training Evaluation Form for donning PPE. So when we add this in here, and I'll just select it, and we'll show you this is a PDF document, and this is that task sheet or evaluation form that we can put in. You can actually add this directly into the training record in there, and if you have the skills in the computer software, you can actually make these forms like this a form fillable, put it into, embed it in the training record, pull it up and fill in the information. And if you need to save it electronically or print it out on a hard copy right from the system, it works quite well to do that. So that's an example of a skill sheet. The sky's the limit here. I just have a handful of them in here, as you can see, but you can certainly put a lot more of them in there. We're going to move on over to the general settings tab and talk about these. Now, I have all of these check marked in this particular account. The ones I want to talk about specifically for the discussion today is these two at the top. Track hours by training code by individual, and next door to that, track hours by training code. It is a best practice to leave both of those items check marked at all times in the general settings. The other ones down here is we do have some master task sheets in most of the accounts, or some of the older accounts anyways. You can hide those by selecting here, and you can hide master codes also by selecting that. A newer feature we have is the ability to require student verification. Now this is an electronic signature basically that your folks, after they attend a training session, can go in and select which trainings they verifying that they attended. They put their password in, and the system will register that. And there are several reports putting that in, and this is to replace and is our electronic version of sign-in sheets, is the student verification. Just to show you how that works very, very quickly, I will jump down into the My Profile module. So everybody has that available to them. And then here, if you activate that, and we got a random logout, we do not know what is causing that. However, let's go back there again to the My Profile module. And we'll show you down here at the bottom, training class verification. So if you have that activated, there's a red exclamation point here. When we select that, you'll see a list of classes on this particular page, and you can check mark them to verify them. And when you select verify class, you'll put in your password and select OK, and it will send that and put that information into the class record. And we do have a report that prints that information out too, so we can track which classes got verified and which not. And that's basically an electronic signature. That's a newer feature. It's not very old. We just had that in here for maybe a couple years. And we're going to jump right next to standards, or general settings, and go to standards. And within standards, this is if you are doing your training and you are wanting to identify what standards. And here I see I've got examples of the various ISO standards that we can put in. There are several reports that are tied to standards. We have in this particular account, we have NFPA 1002 and 1021, and down here with the OSHA CFR 1910-120, which is the HAZWOPER training. And this is just a very, very short list here. You can expand upon that and put those in if you want to identify your training with standards and use those reports that are used with that parameter. You know. There's one other setting that I want to get to. And I'm going to refer to my notes to make sure I'm doing this correctly. And it happens to be in the payroll module. I'm going to go to the payroll module and to settings. So with the general settings, there's two at the top with those checked, and also this one right here, enable hourly payroll for training, having that enabled right here. And even if you don't use the training records themselves to generate payroll you can use that to your best advantage, and that is tied to some features within a training record that it gives you, and additional training reports if you have that enabled, that you can utilize. And one thing you'll want to do if you enable that, especially if you're not using the payroll in the training record for calculating payroll up, you want to make sure you have your personnel availability to set a default pay rate of $0 in each person's personnel record on that personal info tab at the bottom of the page. Select that. This enabled turns that red, required, and then select that default $0 pay grade, and you'll be able to use full advantage again of the training system and the training reports out there. So we wanted just to talk about all those things, and that is basically the settings section of it. So I'm going to stop and ask Michael if we have anything he wants to jump in and talk about right now. Any questions?
You haven't answered some questions in the background. Excuse me. Todd Russell asked, and I may have misspoke to him earlier, on the locations tab, he's asking about reorganizing. I'm assuming he's referring to the same ABCD, EFG area. But kind of touch base with him on, or you can kind of show that where we can't actually organize those locations by alphabetical once they're in on the drop-down list. And Todd, send me a question if that's where you were headed. Are you understand, Mark?
Sure, exactly. So what we're talking about here is, let me jump back to the training module, and on that list of locations, so we can organize it here in alphabetical order, but in the training record itself, I believe what you're referring to, correct me if I'm wrong here, it doesn't display in alphabetical order, ascending or descending in the training record. It displays them in order of addition. Is that correct?
Right. That's where I think he's heading. I want to double check here.
And
that's been a known bug for.
Yeah. So if we're on this page, and I'm just going to go ahead and start a basic addition of a training class so we can just review this very, very quickly. So we have to call the training class something. So that's what I'm calling it. Call it something for Virtual Thursday 2019-12. So let's say that we did this class yesterday at 0900. Very simple class entry, single record, add class, and we go to the page 1 of 5 in here. So we're on the info page here, and we're going to jump right down here to locations. So if I select a location by selecting change, and we go from one of our existing locations, this list, as you can see, is not in alphabetical order, and this is what Michael was just talking about. So this one, I was just over in Germany a few weeks ago here, and that's the one we put in over there. So it's on the bottom. So that's what we have at this point, is these in this display are in order of addition to the system. So I think that's what Todd was probably asking about. And I think we have that written up too, Todd. So hopefully they'll take a look at that when they have some ability to spend some dev time on that. So we've got the class named. We're going to pick one of our class categories. I'm just going to pick firefighter training here. If we have it associated with the station, we're going to list that station on our instructors. We're going to add in within our department, one of our firefighters as the lead instructor. It's by default will pop up to lead instructor on that drop-down list. I can add assistant instructors, or if I have an outside instructor, my good old buddy Jim Shue from the next door fire department came in. Now, if I don't change this instructor type from lead to assistant or evaluator, the system will do that for you and move your other lead instructor to assistant instructor. The resources. So if we have our list of resources, we're just going to pick that we're going to use some fire hose and nozzle and other resources that we might add to the record. Training codes. This is where we get fun. And we'll go to our training code list. So I am actually, since we're going to do a hose drill here, we're going to filter the list with the word hose, and I know we have that in here someplace, so we're selecting it. So if you have, you know, several hundred, and I've certainly seen accounts that have several hundred training codes in them, you can use those filters up to your advantage. Now, what you have to do with those settings that we have set that we recommend is in the hours field, you have to add these hours, and you have to use all 5 characters. So let's say we did 2.5 hours worth of deploying hose drills. So we type in all 5 characters, 002 hours, 30 minutes, and you'll see that transposes up to the class lane. Now, one thing that you can't do is add additional training codes in a training class. So I am just actually going to come down here and pick one of these, even though it doesn't really match up with doing hose training, and add it. So you can see we can put multiple training codes in. So let's say with that, we did a little bit of training on our air packs. So we have 30 minutes of training there. Now you can see our total class length was 3 hours. We have our standards, if we're putting those in. So let's say we did some company training, company level training. So we're adding that standard in. If we want to list our objectives, we can down here. Type them in, do a copy and paste if you want to. And then the last thing we have to do is slide back up to the top and figure out what kind of evaluation method that we're using. So since we're going out there on the streets and doing some drills, it's manipulate. And we check mark now we have a green light up here for info. Now, if you don't want to take the time to type in all these objectives down here, do a copy and paste. If you have a written out lesson plan, we'll get there and we'll show you what to do with that in the files. In the narrative, gives us a text box that we can just type in a narrative. Now, many of you out there, customers, would like to have a narrative to be required, which would make that a red light, and you have to type in some type of narrative before it turns green. There is no setting to do that right now. What I recommend that you do is go into the community forums, into the feature request, and you'll find that in there, and put a note in and give it a vote. And get anybody in your department that you can to give it a vote to push that up. Maybe we can get some dev time dedicated towards that type of a setting within the training module. A lot of people ask for that. Now we're going to switch to the files tab. So in the files, we can do several things. If we've got a PowerPoint program, a lesson plan, we can add that file. We can upload up to 20 files at a time. There is a file size limitation of 20 megabytes, but you can add multiple files here, just like in an incident report. So I'm going to go to some demo docs I have, and I've got a fake lesson plan out here someplace, I think. Here it is, SCBA drill. We'll add that as a Word document. Basically any type of document, Word document, PDFs and so forth can be added here. Those task sheets. So if we have a task sheet in the system, we can select that one. So I'm going to select that one on our donning PPE and add it. And you can see we've added that task sheet right here. Now, another feature we have is adding URLs. So I can about guarantee you in our good old friend YouTube, which I'll just go to top of the page here. Go in, I'm going to do fire hose drills. There we go, fire hose training. So now we've got, here's a good hose drill video. So we're going to select this here, and we're not going to play it. We're going to grab the URL up here at the top of the page. Copy, go into that training record and select to add a URL. And we are going to add it here. Name it. And put a description in. And we're going to save and close. We can add additional ones if we want to. So we have that in here. Now I'm going to come up to the top and close that tab so you can see how this would work. If I select now that URL line, or sort of hose drill, move over here to the right and select the globe, it's going to take us out to YouTube, wherever that is embedded. That was quite annoying, but anyway, you can see how that works, and you can link those right into your training record. And if we would play that just a few more seconds there, you'll see that hose drill come up. Let's come out here.
Officer finishes the 360, comes back to the firefighter.
So this is that video that we're looking at.
The officer can pick.
It's a real nice little feature that you can embed those directly into your training record. Now we're going to bump over to the people page and add personnel. Now here's one disclaimer I want to push out to you, and a thought to think about. We do have the ability to add non-agency personnel and agency personnel. So if you have people from other departments or agencies that came into your training, you can put their name in here and record them for your particular training session. So you only have their name and their agency. You don't have the ability to add hours and points to them because they don't work for you. And you can also add agency personnel, of course. So this is your personnel list. So I'm going to filter this list by, let's say, C-Shift, my favorite. I'm going to add everybody from C-Shift real quick to it. Now, our next step is I'm going to come over here and select the fill button for hours. And we'll get the warning. Yes, that's what we want to do, and put them down here. So it's giving everybody those 3 hours. As you can see, I got everybody's pay grade in here, except for my buddy Jim Shue. Now, if you are using points, you can also establish points for the trainings as appropriate. Put them in here.
Hey, Mark, I do have one question that popped up on this particular topic, if you can tag on to it. David,
Absolutely.
or I believe it was David Aubrey also asked, how do I, when using points, how do I give like half credit for somebody if they were kind of lingering in the back room of the class but not really participating? You know, I don't want to give them full credit.
Good question. So, so everybody gets a point in this example for training except for our slacker. So we're going to come down here and pick up Superman, Clark Kent, and we're going to come over here and take those hours right there and edit them. And as you can see, you can do that. So I can edit those hours for each and one individually if I need to, whichever way. So,
and also if you do add more than one training code too.
Oh, okay. So let's go here. So with the settings that I described them to you, with those 3 settings, the 2 at the top of the general settings and the training module settings and the payroll settings for enable hourly, you'll have a little triangle out here. So every training code we put in for the training will be listed here. So if, let's go back to Superman here. We'll scroll down to Clark Kent. In this example here, so let's say that he was here for all 30 minutes of the self-contained breathing apparatus training, but the hose line training, he was only here for an hour of it. So we can come into this and then edit those hours. So now he, instead of being at all 3 hours of the training, was only at, as you can see, 1.5 hours of the training. So that's the other feature we have on editing these hours. Now, when you do that, you're going to get a warning on the next page, in the authorization page, that you've got a mismatch in hours, and that's what it means right here for that mismatch. So yeah, we can edit these individually with the settings by each individual training code for each person, or those points. The points, you just have to go into that field and type them in and you can edit them. So it's got a personnel in. We're going to go to authorize and see it's telling us about class hours, student hours, and those training code hours are claimed. That's the mismatch. Put our password in, and in some cases you'll have the ability to complete and review at one time. So we've completed this class, and if we go back out to the grid, we will see that it is reviewed. And this is one right at the top of the page right here. Now, there's another point for the training reports. Most of them, I think there's only 2 of them that include hours from any training session out there. Most of them, they have to be in reviewed status before the training report will pull the hours. So you want to make sure that you not only complete it, have somebody review it. And if it's a training officer putting in the record, he can have his settings and the roles and permissions set to be able to do both of those in one operation. So it's your choice on how you would set that up within your departments on that. So another quick little example we're going to show you is we're going to add a class, but we're going to actually create a class. We're going to show you 2 things at once here. We're going to actually show you how we create a class by using a template. Now, if you're providing the same training session multiple times. You can create a template, which will be, you'll be able to set up, for the most part, your training record will be set up for you from the template. So we're going to do this training today on the 7th, and we're going to do it at 0800 this morning. And we're also going to do a recurring training session. So not only are we going to do this training today at 0800, we're going to do it the next couple of days. So we're going to select recurring and select to add the class. Now when we do this, you'll see we have a new button up at the end of it, and it is the schedule button. So basically what I have to do on this page, since I've got everything set up for the basic information, is add an instructor. And that's the benefit of using these templates. So we'll add a lead instructor for the training, and you'll notice we'll have a green light for this automatically. Now obviously some of my information is missing here. I did not put it in for this, but any of this information you put into the template will be pulled right into this page. I'm going to skip the narrative and files, and we're going to go straight to scheduling it. So we're going to schedule it not only for today, but tomorrow. So on the 8th at 0800, select insert, and we're going to do it on the 9th at 1300 hours. Insert that, and we're going to schedule them. So when I do this function, we are scheduling 3 sessions. My first one that happened today, this morning, and you can see it scheduled here, and my next 2. Now I will go back into this one, and since it was done this morning, and add my people. And we're going to have agency personnel only. And this particular case, we're going to go to B shift. My good old friends on B shift. There's Michael Bazzoni. You still on B shift, Michael?
No, I went to C shift.
Oh, all right.
I got worse.
Oh, no, wait a minute. You beat me up a little bit on that. Little banter we have here. I'm a lifelong C shifter. I spent like a total of 3 years and a couple months on A shift. Most of my full-time career when I was on shifts was spent on C shift, so I'm a big fan of them. So let's go ahead and complete this one, review it, and got just a couple more things to show you, and then we'll conclude the training today. So a template. How do we do a template? Well, we have a link right at the top of the page. Now this is permission-based to be able to add or edit templates. I'm going to come over here to the status column and show you. Down here we have complete templates and incomplete. I'm going to take one that's in complete status to show you this list. These are templates we have in here, and you can have an extensive list of templates. To add a new template, it's fairly simple. We will select the link here, and we're just going to shorten this up, call it Thursday 2019-12, and we're going to create this from scratch, although we could base it upon one of our other previous templates and edit it. We're going to create it from scratch. So add the template and select any data that is pretty common to all these. So let's say this is a communications-based class. We're going to leave, as you can see, the instructors is black. It's not required in the template. We would add our resources, maybe our station if they were all going to be at a certain station, and our training code here. Let's see if we have something about communications down here someplace, and it doesn't look like I do. Oh, here we go. We'll just call it incident command. I think you get the idea. And let's say whenever we present this class, it is always 2 hours. You don't have to put data in here in the hours in a template, but if you do, it saves you just a little bit of time down the road. And we're going to do written evals on this class at all times. So we only have 3 buttons here: our info page, our files page, and our authorized page. So any other information we need here, if we're going to attach it to standards, so maybe this will be attached to officer training. Our location, if we have a location to put it to, maybe it's at the good old NFA. That's where Michael's going to be in the next couple of weeks. And our objective is appropriate. Add our files as appropriate, and then we go to the authorized page to complete the template. And that's a quick little lesson on how to create a template.
So, Mark, while you're on there real quick, and I don't want to get too far in the weeds, we've actually got 2 pretty good questions that'll gear towards what you were just talking about. The first question comes from Doug, and he's asking, what is the best practice for tracking required hours? You know, let's say like driver's training hours and per training session that he or she may not complete in one session. So, and you can obviously chime in and disagree with me if you want, or if you got another suggestion, but in my opinion, is a perfect thing for JPRs.
Oh, absolutely,
So,
Michael. You're right on the
and JPRs are built by class templates. So basically, Doug, what you would do, and you would basically build a class template for each one of your tasks that have to be completed. And then once they complete all those tasks, that JPR is considered signed off. So I'll post a link to the knowledge base articles we have on that. And we've had a couple other training session webinars too, kind of focusing on that. But that's a real in-depth thing that we don't really have enough time to go over today.
Right. We're going to briefly cover what a JPR is next. So
okay, I'm sorry.
Very, very timely question. Yeah. So that template I just created is at the bottom of the list here, and it's in complete status. So we can use it. They have to be complete, the template, before you can use it. So the JPR in Doug's question is very timely because that's what we're going to look at, and probably the last thing we're going to specifically cover. And you see at the top of the page, we have a link here, a button for JPRs. I'm going to select that and just review basically what happens with a JPR. You can see I've got several in here. And I'm going to go to this CVG RTA test. So we created this one when we were at the Cincinnati RTA. If you don't know that, CVG is the airport designator for the Greater Cincinnati Airport. Anyway, you can see in this particular case, I set up a JPR. We called it CVG RTA test. This JPR runs. So if you have required training in a certain time period, so sometime this year in 2019, from 1/1/2019 to 12/31/19, you had to complete these classes, this training. You can see the status is incomplete because if we look down here at the bottom, I've only got one person complete and the next is pending. So when you set up a JPR, and we have the knowledge base articles out there refer to this, this is basically the page. I'm editing it, but it's the same page that creates them. Now this account I have is a full safety analytics class, so I have the option to attach them to the safety analytics training gauge down here. You may not have that. So we've named it. We have a start and end date, a description, and we will add those class templates down here. Now, one thing I want to just point out is from experience, and I've seen a lot of folks struggle with this, is don't get too aggressive and load up for, let's say, a 1 month period, 10 training sessions, unless you know you're going to have pretty good success with getting them all in. So you want to be real reasonable in your local department on what you can and cannot accomplish with getting required training done. So we've got a couple templates put into here. You can have any number of them in here. And our personnel within the agency that are required to have this training. And see, that's a short list. Myself and our one of our other regional trainers, Ryan. Ryan is up in Maine. So we just added those two in 2 templates. So as we're putting the classes in between the start and end date of this template, the system will know whether we've got them done or not. So it's telling us that status right here. I'm going to come down here to this one for CPR and just show you it real quick. So here we have 3 templates in here, and most of these folks have completed only 1 of the 3. And here I've got one that's completed 2 of the 3. Now there is a report tied to these templates. So what I'm going to do is show you that real quick. Go to the reports. And this is another real quick way to find out what your status with the templates are and the JPRs. It's a 1688 report. I'm selecting it now, and we'll go to it. And we're going to put it for the year, but I'm going to focus on just that CPR JPR. And you can do a multi-pick list here if you need to. And you can run multiple JPRs at the same time if you need to. We're going to create this report, and you'll see with this particular report, the nice thing about it is, you can see that, oh, this may be for 2018. Let me rerun that for 2018. This may be an older one. I really didn't look at the dates. Maybe 2017. Striking out here, Michael. That may be.
Sorry, I can't help you. I wasn't watching.
All right. So yeah, this was this JPR was in 2017. I failed to recognize that when we're looking at it. So see, with this, it's going to give us everybody that's on the personnel list that's required for this training and the training templates that we put in, and if they've completed it, you'll see a date of completion over here in green in the date completed column. And if we scroll down here a little bit, you'll see that this person has not completed one of those templates, one of those training sessions that they're required to have. So the 1688 report is another real quick way and an excellent viewpoint of who's got the training and not. and that's the 1688 report. So that basically, if I can just sum up what we covered, what we were wanting to cover today. So what we'll do here, Michael, is let you answer any other questions that somebody may have put in. I can see the light blinking.
Yeah, got some good questions coming across here. The other one I wanted to bring up was so Mark asked if we have any, and I'm assuming pre-made training codes for, it says NC technical rescue specialties. I'm assuming North Carolina, it probably means North Carolina, I hope, NC, and just kind of explain again how we get these training codes and kind of how we've built our database.
Okay, so the ones I have and the ones that are in the files that you can download right from here in the handout section, I acquired those from being on site training with folks that they said, hey, take a look at our training codes, and they're excellent examples. So I just converted them. If you can actually pull them off of an account by doing a copy paste, doing a little bit of magic to them and putting them into an Excel spreadsheet. Now to import those, we actually have to use a template that's saved as a CSV file type. So, and we can do that right from any data you send to us. So if you want to take a look at one of those handouts specifically out there, and let me jump in and pull one of those up, the example I used earlier, just to show everybody this. So now this has got 3 tabs on it in this particular case. This has got class categories, training code categories, and training codes. What we can import are training codes, which is on this page here, actual training code and the description of it. Attached to that, we need to know what training code category you're wanting to put that in. So in the import template, there's 3 columns. There's a training code category, a training code column, which is in this page. So we have that column and a description column, and these are what we can import. So if anybody's interested in having us do that, generate a spreadsheet, you can base it off of these examples. The other ones that I have here basically have 1 page, and it's only the training codes with the 3 columns: training code category, training code, and description. And enter that in and zoom them to us via email, and we can help you get those imported into your account. So hopefully that answers that question, Michael.
I believe so. And then Mark asked another good one real quick. How do I use multiple training codes and not get double hours when running a report for training hours for both the codes? So
the reports are supposed to take care of that,
right?
Not duplicate the hours. Now we did have a problem with one of the reports that did that, but they have fixed that recently, so it shouldn't be an issue. If you run multiple training codes on the same report, depending on what report it is, and that brings me to another point. I'm glad he asked that question right now, because in the handouts we have this document available for you. This is in the knowledge base as well, and this just got revised last month. This is our training reports job aid. This is like, I think, 9 or 10 pages long, and you'll see at the top of this page we indicate right here that we have 2 reports that strictly pulls the hours from the class category and class length, and they're highlighted blue down below. If the hours data on the training report pulls from the info page, they're highlighted green down below. And if they pull the training hours from the people page, which can be adjusted, they're highlighted yellow. So one of the updates we just did to this 1502 report is that it's highlighted yellow, which it now brings the hours in from the people page, which you can adjust if you need to. Prior to that update on that particular report, it brought the hours in from the info page. So in this particular handout, if you want to download it, print it out, it tells you basically where the data comes from, what page, what parameters are available on it, and some other important features of that particular report. Like this particular report, 1503, includes the class name that we type into it, whether it comes from your template or you type it in. But this one, it shows, does not provide the adjusted hours because it pulls it from the info tab, not the people page in the training class. So this has got every report based in the training module listed in it, and any of them that pull training hours is highlighted in here, what page it brings the hours from. Like this 1507 report, this is a high level report. So this is just that high altitude viewpoint of the class information, not individual topics that we train, but it'll just tell us that we did firefighter training, special ops training, and so forth, however you have your class category set up. And we'll just scroll down here through a couple more of these to show you that these are all color coded. It gives you really, really good information on where that data is pulled from. You can find a report in here that's going to work for you. Anything else, Michael?
Looks like, no, I think that's, I'm answering a couple of questions in the background, but I think that's it for the group.
All right. Well, I want to go ahead and thank everybody for attending today. You've all asked some excellent questions. Good group of folks out there. I did recognize a few names if they're still out there today from previous trainings I've been at and associated with our virtual Thursdays. Todd Russell from up in Palmer, Alaska. It's good to see you on board with us today. And Jim Wheeler from up in the northeast Ohio. That's a whole different part of the state. Where I live, it might as well be another country, Jim. But anyway, good to see you folks there and everybody else that was in attendance today. And we'll give everybody just another minute or so to type in a question if you have any for us, and we'll get them answered for you, and then we'll put this one in the record book.
And Mark, go ahead and look at the question panel too, see if there's anything you want to answer on air.
I'll take a look at it real quick. And scrolling down through here, it looks like you got them all handled there. Okay, so yeah, Mark, we talked about that one there about answering for multiple training codes in the info section. You can actually put in as many as you want in there. Just remember to associate the correct hours with them. You can do that in templates too. Okay, we had answered Doug's question with the JPRs. And okay, training missed. There's Kevin, training missed on a shift. Actually, we do have a couple reports. I gotta remember which ones they are, unless Michael can tell me real quick.
And while you're doing that real quick too, Mark, I did link in the chat box. We mentioned some stuff about ISO and documenting your training. We did have a virtual training session. Actually, looks like right about a year ago with David Richardson for Midwest City Fire, big ISO individual. Go ahead, and that link is in the box there. You guys click on and watch that webinar and kind of answer a lot of great questions about ISO and reporting to that training wise.
And I'm looking for the report numbers. We have some missed training reports. Okay, here it is right here, 1626. Training codes not completed by personnel. So this is an excellent report. So let's say we have we put a training record in on November 1st for a specific topic. We want everybody to do it, and we're not going to use a JPR. What you can run then is this report, and what the system will do, this report will go and look in the system and say, okay, that training code is out there. This person should take it. And if they don't, if their name does not show up on a class record with that training code, then it will print that on this particular report. So it's the training codes not completed by personnel. And that was asked by Kevin Sargent. It's got several parameters on it. You got a multi-picker for personnel, so you can focus down on to a shift, and a multi-picker for training code. So if you only have like one or two for that month or that period that you want to make sure that everybody got, run this report, focusing on those training codes in that multi-picker. You can get this information very, very quickly to you. So that is a great question, Kevin.
And just to tag on that too, report 1684 will be beneficial to that kind also, that class is not completed.
Okay, cool. I know there was two of them, but let me scroll down here to 1684. Here we go. Class is not completed for personnel. So it's a very similar report, just maybe displays things a little bit different and some different multi-pickers, like this bases on a class category.